I am a storyteller. I write stories for children and young adults. I've written in theatre, I've written for adults too, and I write stories about navigating our world as we all live through it. I spend a lot of time with a pen in my hand, imagining and dreaming and distilling ideas and icons and symbols and characters and people and just imagining. So When Shadows Fall is probably the story that has taken me the longest to write. It is a story about 4 friends who know each other from nursery until sixth form. And it is Kai, one of the young people, who is looking back on his whole childhood from nursery and these bonded friendships in this beautiful piece of urban land. And the young people in this story almost have grown out of this land. They've built their dens there. All their stories are kind of planted on this land. And this land is now threatened to be developed. It's a story for young adults, for anyone who has experienced what it is like to make that transition from childhood days into the teenage years and into adulthood. I think really it's a story for anyone who is entering that rites of passage moment in life and who has entered and got through that moment and survived it. There are many inspirations to writing When Shadows Fall. When I first left university, and I was not that much older than Kai, I went to work at a theatre called the Royal Court Young People's Theatre, and I did what was called outreach work, which was going into the community and asking young people to tell their stories, young people who might not be interested, some of whom were in an excluded unit at the bottom of Trellick Towers in Ladbroke Grove. And they were incredible young people, and I've never forgotten them. And in this story, at a certain point, Kai is excluded from school. I think I always remember the children and young people that I have worked with. There is something about the way in which some young people from a very early age do not feel that they're part of a system. I know what it is when people have had trauma for them to explore in a wider way how they can grow again in a different place. And that is really planted into this story, the knowledge of how the arts and how expressing yourself, whether it be through writing or whether it be through art or singing, all of which are in this story. There are so many aspects of these young people's lives that touch on some of the major kind of challenges that we face today as adults and young people. There is trauma, which I think with COVID, everybody has felt an element of that in their families and societies and communities. There's also the great joy of bonded friendship in this story. And I think one of the things that I'm so happy about this story, When Shadows Fall, is I really, really wanted to have this charge of agency for the young people in this book to have stood together. There's a character in the story called Omid, and he says to his friend Kai, "Kai, when shadows fall, you stand beside." The power of art and writing is a real central force in this book. It's the charge that pushes the story forward. You know that the pen is in Kai's hand. You know that Omid, his friend, who is a refugee survivor who arrives in year 8 at school, he has the paintbrush in his hand. And you know that Orla is exploring the power to speak. So all of these young people are exploring their voice in different ways in the story. Natalie Sirett and I have known each other since our children were in nursery together, and we used to set up easels in the garden for our children, for them to paint and express themselves, and I used to make these tents. We had this kind of wild creativity that we used to do with our young children. Natalie is an incredible Royal Academy artist and multimedia artist, and who understands the power of icon and symbol. And the way in which I start books is always through exploring the symbolic world of my characters. So our approach is very similar. I passed Natalie some words, and then she would give me ravens in different forms of flight and images, and she would give me pictures of the wasteland that I was writing about. The process of writing is very difficult to describe. I'm going to use some words that Kai uses in the book. I take a pen out of my pocket to write a new beginning. As I do, I'm blasted by the bright, sweet voice of a song thrush. I close my eyes, picturing the words that flow now from my pen as they sing through me. And when I pick up the pen and I'm in that flow, I am with those characters in that story, and everything else is kind of gone. It's just me doing service to those characters and being in service to those characters and the story. About the passing of the pen in the story, there is a kind of ritual in this book, which is included in the Dear Reader. I say, this story is in your hands to have and to hold. In it you will find the passing of a pen and charcoal to make art from scorched earth. Take it up and feel its force, for now is your time to fly. So in the actual form of this book, there is a kind of closing of the cycle and a saying to young people, here's the pen, here's the paintbrush, here's the saxophone, here's the dance. Now you take it up and you fly. It feels like it's a really good time to use this platform and these stories to offer wider opportunity to these young people. And that's really the story of When Shadows Fall.